Hi, this is 50/50 Real Estate Podcast for the Common Man, where we talk about selling, buying, and investing in real estate. We aren't baffling you with BS. We're dazzling you with brilliance. We're not telling you how to become a millionaire. We are telling you stories, the truth, and the information no one is talking about. So sit back, listen, laugh, and enjoy 50/50 Real Estate Podcast for the Common Man.
Hey everybody, JD here. Hope you're looking good and feeling fine. Hopefully you had a good week with friends, neighbors, and relatives and acquaintances. We're going to be discussing quite a few things on this podcast. There's so many people have came in and said, JD, looks like the market has just collapsed. Look like the market is just going down. Every time I'm looking at it, people are dropping the prices, home builders are struggling, people are just not buying. Well, it's really interesting because when I look at the market, I noticed that, there's a lot of real estate agents that have gotten into this business, probably within the past 10 years. They never went through a market like this. So what has happened is, they just really don't know how to do a competitive market analysis in today's market. They do know how to do a regular competitive market analysis. And what they have done is they have got on to the probably multiple listing service. And they do what they call an automated market analysis. And what that is the computer basically just looks at the past 5, 6 months, 7 months, and says, okay, within this amount of time, homes like yours have sold for this amount. So this is where we should list your home. Well, that's the past 10 years how it's been done. And that's the way a lot of real estate agents have been trained. When I began 35 years ago, I was trained the same way. Matter of fact, we didn't have computers. We had to really go out and look at what sold. We had books that looked like telephone books, if you remember those. And we had to look at we got every month a big telephone book of what sold that month, and we had to look at all the homes that matched the sellers and pretty much do a lot of calculations on a home and come up with our own price. Well, in today's market, the computers do all that instantaneously. I mean, stuff that took us like a whole day now probably takes 5 to 10 minutes. Well, what is happening is so many real estate agents who have not done it the old way. They've just done it where the MLS or the computers automate the competitive market analysis, are coming up with prices that are too high. Now, this is no fault of the real estate agents because that's just pretty much all they know. And like I said, they go to the MLS, they get their competitive market analysis, and they say, okay, what has sold in the surrounding areas that look like the seller's house? And you put your 3-bedroom, 3-bath, square foot garages, upgrades and so on, and it looks around the neighborhood or a certain area, and it says, okay, we found 4 homes that look like your home, and they've all sold for, I'm just going to use this as an example, $700,000. So they come in, they look at the market analysis, and they say, when they sit down with the seller, look at, we got all these homes just like yours. They've sold here, sold here, sold here, and they're a lot like your home, and the price is about $700,000. So what they do is they go out, and the seller goes, oh, okay, well, that's pretty much what the neighbor down the street sold for him, and Bobby across the street, and, Joe across the street, and they had homes similar to mine, and that's kind of what the prices they sold. So I want to list my home at $700,000. $1,000. So they put the house on the market and nothing happens. And what happens is you've got 30 homes all listed, pretty much the same home that the seller's selling, all listed at $700,000, and nothing's moving. So what happens is you're just another, house on the shelf, and you're not unique. You're priced like everybody else, so nothing moves. And what happens is you don't get the showings. The sellers, the real estate agents are frustrated, and they're just going, geez, things just aren't selling. I haven't got any showings. The market's terrible. Things aren't moving. There's just no buyers. So what happens is after maybe a couple of weeks, the real estate agent comes in and says, things just ain't moving. We're not getting any showings. We need to lower the house. They lower it at $10,000, which doesn't do anything. It's still overpriced. They lower another $10,000 after maybe a few more weeks or a month. They lowered another $10,000. After about 3 months, 4 months, the seller is just real frustrated because he thought he was going to get they thought they were going to get $700,000, and they aren't getting anything. So they get really frustrated and they decide, look, if we can't get $700,000 and we've lowered it $50,000, so now we have our prices at $650,000, and the house still hasn't sold, then I just want to cancel the contract. I want to just take it off the market. It's a terrible market. I'm never going to get my price. Well, here's where the problem comes in, folks. If you're thinking of selling your home, or you're thinking about buying a home, or you're a real estate agent that maybe has just been around for 10 years, the problem is when you do a market analysis and you're using all those comparable homes, because all they can do when you're doing a market analysis is you can't go forward, they just go back. So they look at all the homes that has sold in the past, and they come up with a price at what your home should be selling now, which is totally ridiculous, because the past 3 years has been a false economy, a false housing market, and it's just been a total deception. Housing have just went way through the roof. People were overbidding. It was just a smoke and mirrors real estate market that probably over time will be erased. As a matter of fact, people probably in the next 5 years will be talking about probably 2020 and 2022. Between 2020 and 2022, they'll be speaking about that real estate market the same way they're speaking about the market when it went down the tubes in 2008. So what happens is the sellers are not informed. They only know what sold in the past. And what happens is the real estate agents, they don't know how to compensate because the computer does it all. So what happens is the sellers, they get frustrated. They stop bad-mouthing their real estate agents. Well, you told me that this house was worth $700,000, but man, we haven't gotten any showings and it's terrible. And I don't know why I listed with Joe Schmo. I'm just going to cancel the contract. Well, Joe Schmo, he's frustrated. He doesn't want to continue because the seller is just harassing him and bothering him. And now I want open houses, and I want you to do ads, and I want you to do YouTube ads, and blah, 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 blah. No marketing in the world will compensate for an overpriced home. And people think that. They think, well, if I do marketing and open houses and flyers and mailers and so on, then I'll be able to get my price. No, you can't create a market and you can't create a price that you want just because of massive advertising. You have to use common sense. You have to make your house stand out above everyone else, and you have to use common sense on your price. Now, in the past 3 or 4 years, I mean, you throw the house up, you didn't even have to do anything, cut the lawn, weed, old carpet, old paint, old, old furniture cabinets, kitchen cabinets, old everything, and you had 10 offers on it, and they all bid $30,000, and you didn't even have to vacuum the floor or cut the lawn or do anything because they just took it as is. Well, now that that's all wiped out, you've got to really have your house turnkey. Paint, carpet, linoleum, your yard's got to be nice, upgrades. So when people come in and they see your home, they go, wow, this is move-in condition. And you also have to have a really good price. So you can't say, well, my house is better than everybody else's and it's turnkey condition and I want $700,000 for it, and because it's in great condition. Well, that's no big deal, because like I said, everybody else in the market is pretty much the same price as yours, and probably maybe the same condition that your house has. So you're not unique. So they come in, they go, okay, another one of these. There's a nice house, but $700,000. I just saw 4 other houses like that. Oh, here's another one. Yeah, it's overpriced. Don't want to say that one. So what you have to do is you have to get the emotion out of it. Every seller, even when I sold some of my homes, I always thought my home, as a real estate agent, would think I know better, but the emotions get in the way. My home is better than anyone else's. Well, no, you're just a house like on the shelf, like everyone else. And what you have to do is you have to have that house in spotless, really good condition now, and you've got to have a price where people come in and go, wow, look at this house and look at the price. Wow. This house, beginning of 2022, wow, this was like $700,000. Wow. This is immaculate, and they're only asking $620 for it. Probably almost $100,000 less. And if you can do that, your house is going to sell, because you have to wipe away those past 3 years as if they didn't exist. And people always ask, well, okay, the market analysis will tell me what my house is worth. I've talked with 3 or 4 real estate agents, all coming up with the same price. Well, they're all on the same bus. They're all using the same software program. They're all probably part of the same MLS. So they get on the MLS, they use the same product, and they all come up relatively at the same price, which is all overpriced. And like I said, if you've got real estate agents and you talk to 3 of them and they're all saying your house is worth $700, and then you have one guy that comes in and says, hey, look it, you're not going to get it $700. That was such a false economy, and you're using overinflated prices that have sold for the past 3 years to come up with what your house is worth now. Your house is worth probably $600. You're gonna throw that guy to the curb, because you're gonna say $600. I got 3 real estate agents that tell me it's worth $700, and then your house sits and sits and sits, and never ever sells. Matter of fact, I used to work with a big company, and was big producer and so on. That was a while ago, and I remember one of the top producers that worked just across the hall from me did really, really well. And a lot of times I would walk away from listings. Just they didn't want to listen to me. They were too emotional. They always thought their houses were worth way more than they were. And I was just like, look at I can't create this market. I can't create a price for you. I suggest you just use another real estate agent. As a matter of fact, one seller called me up. They were really excited. I started talking about his house. He's like, oh, I got upgraded cabinets and upgraded, bath and upgraded floor and upgraded carpet. And I'm like, wow, this sounds really good. I walked into the house. It was 15, 20 years old. Nothing had been upgraded in 20 years. And he was saying, oh, when we bought this house, all this stuff was upgraded. and I just kind of had to bite my tongue. I was like, yeah, this stuff's all 20 years old. It might have been upgraded 20 years from ago, but it's all old and worn out now. So, like I said, a lot of sellers get emotionally involved, and also a real estate agent. But anyway, like I said, when I was working for this company, I overheard across the hall these two people who were, doing really well, and I was like, "Whoa, I wonder," kind of eavesdropping. And I remember they were saying, "Well, look, here's what we do. We know that they're going to be interviewing 3 real estate agents, and we know we're all pulling off the same MLS, and so we know what that person's house is really listed or should be listed for." But sellers are really emotional. So I actually heard them say this: let's bump the price up 10%. Okay, let's bump this price 10%. And they'll probably list with us because everybody goes with the higher price. Then when we get them in a contract, let's see if we can get that price. But if we can't, we'll just start lowering the price to what it should be. And then we'll get the deal. And we'll get the listing too. And I was listening to this. I was like, man, wow. Man, that's just sleazy. I mean, sleazy. But real estate agents do it all the time. They overinflate the price of the home to get your listing. They know exactly, if they've done their homework, what it's going to sell for. But they realize that you probably think your house is worth a lot more because you got these comps of 3 years, that's 3 years old that says, oh, your house is worth $700, and there's 5 offers on one home and 30 offers on another one and 20 offers on the other one. So when somebody comes in and says, oh, your house is worth this, you go, oh yeah, I know what my house is worth. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted because I have 3 comparables around the neighborhood that just sold like that. Well, that's the old days. The old days are the old days. That's like I said, false economy. Interest rates were way incredibly low because they just made a false real estate market, false interest rates. Everything was just crazy. But that's what I'm seeing now is the reason why things aren't selling is because sellers and real estate agents are not up to date. They're using old information. The sellers think their houses are worth, a ton of money than they're actually worth. The MLSs are old. Everything's old. And the real estate agents need to just throw that garbage out the past 3 years, use their experience and say, okay, here's really what that house is worth. And if their seller is unrealistic, great. Let somebody else have a sign in front of their yard for the next 3 months. There's an old saying I learned, and it's basically, I'd rather be their second and third real estate agent than their first, because what happens is they learn how incompetent the first one is and how they've been lied to. They start learning really what their home's worth, and then when you come in after they've listed for 3 or 4 months and went through the whole routine, or they've listed twice, and then they go, well, yeah, we've done this, we can't get the price. Yeah, JD, I guess you're right. Yeah, we probably should list this. the way it you told us, because we just can't just get the higher price, so we need to sell it, so let's just list it. And they kind of go that way. So like I said, in real estate, the old saying is, I'd rather be their second, third real estate agent than their first, because they learn all their mistakes from the first one, and then the second one, for some reason, they listen to. And then the second and third real estate agent gets to sell. But what I tell people when I list, I say, hey, look, great. I know you went on Zillow, and I know you went on Redfin, and I know you went on, a ton of other sites, and you came up with the price that you want. I mean, it's kind of like politics. If you're conservative, you're going to go all to every conservative channel you can find to support the way you believe. If you're a liberal, you're going to go to all the liberal channels that support what you say. Same with listing your home. If you're listing your home, you're going to go to every single house that's comparable to yours that justify what you want. And like I said, that's the worst way people can sell their homes. So what I always tell people is, if you're listing in your home in today's market, forget the emotions, forget the comps in the past 3 years. Here's how I've been doing it. Okay, seller, you go back 3 years ago, before the pandemic, before the false economy, before the incredibly insane low interest rates, and you go where it's a normal real estate market. And you say, okay, let's say that 3 years ago, your house was worth $400,000. Okay, and you say, wow, my house 3 years ago was worth $400,000. And let's say, realistically, forget that the pandemic even existed, that a normal house goes up 5% a year. I mean, sometimes you might get 7, sometimes you might get 3, but we're just going to look 5%. So you get the $400,000. You say, okay, 2019, it was 400,000. So 2020, let's add 5% to that. And 2020, it was worth 420. Well, 2021, we had 5% to that, and it was worth 441. And in 2022, we had 5% of that to that. So it's about 463 to 470. So you might want to list your home for about 470, maybe 473. But what happens, people don't do that because they look at the false economy, the false real estate market, and they go, 470, 480, are you crazy? There's 5 properties that all sold for $700,000 like mine. And then you got 3 real estate agents go, like, you look at these comps. Yeah, look at these comps like yours. They all $700,000. That real estate agent's crazy. He wants you to give your house away. And then what happens? You list, and the houses don't sit, and the houses just sit, and the houses just sit, and you have 50 houses in your neighborhood, all priced at $700,000, and none of them are sitting. And then guess what? They all start taking their houses off the market. I've seen it in my area. Canceled contract, canceled listing contract, withdrawn, expired. And what that means is that the contract ran its course and they could never sell it, or they've had showings or no showings, and the sellers just realize, I just can't get what I want, so let's just cancel it. And the real estate agents, they're not, they can't create a price, so they're like, okay, great, I'll just let you out of the contract because I don't want to hear you basically griping every week about how you didn't get any showings and how I didn't get you any contracts because your house is $150,000 overpriced and you all listed it at what it should have been 3 years ago in a false economy, and now it's a real economy and real prices, and you still want to get some crazy high price that doesn't make any sense. So I always tell people, if you're a real estate agent, if you're buying a home or you're selling a home, like I said, get real, guys. Get real. Get with a real estate agent that's competent, knows what they're doing. And if, like I said, if all of them are coming in with the same price, scratch your head and say, wait, they're all giving me prices of 3 years ago, and I know the market is really went down. I need what my house is realistically going to sell in today's market. And if a person's really done their jobs, they're going to explain why your house is worth the way it is. If the other ones don't know what they're doing, they're just going to come in, go through their, competitive market analysis, show you what all these homes that sold, and say, here's what your house sold. And they're just going to use the comps that happen, the past 2 or 3 years that are all overinflated. So I guess where I'm going with this is the market right now isn't bad. People, the market's terrible, homes aren't selling, people are taking their houses off the market, it's terrible, builders aren't selling homes, they're getting all these incentives just to try to move the home. Well, the reason why they're trying to give all these incentives is because, first of all, they built all these homes at, overinflated prices because the wood was so expensive and the piping and foundations and all through the roof. So they don't have a lot of leadway to really sell you that house at a really good price. And so many people say, well, why can't builders just lower their prices? Well, a lot of them do, but it really ticks off all the people that bought all the homes at higher prices in the neighborhood. It totally now completely destroys their blanket appraisals. So what they do is they give you incentives, and they say, well, this home is $700 that we're listing it, really should be listed at maybe $650. So what they're doing is, why we can't lower it at $650 because we've just sold this model in the neighborhood for $700. But we'll pay for a lower interest rate, or we'll give you new, incentives for new carpet, granite countertops, a fireplace. We'll put in new landscaping. We'll throw in a completely finished basement. They'll do all that. Then sometimes lower the prices. Now, if they get really, really desperate, which some builders are, and they might be filing bankruptcy, they're just going to do as much as they can, just get rid of that inventory, because they know that if they hold it, all the construction loans are going to be becoming due, and they won't be able to pay them off, and they'll just have to file bankruptcy. So that's why when you go to a lot of builders, and they give you all these incentives, because, like I said, they have these blanket appraisals for their models, and they just, in most cases, not in all cases, they just can't lower the price of their homes, because it just messes up the whole community, and then the whole community starts bad mouthing them through social media, like, you don't want to buy these people, they don't care, they sold us all these homes at these high prices, and now they're cutting them all down, and now they're selling those homes at much lower prices, which is bringing down the whole neighborhood and just devaluing all our homes. They just won't do that. Just reputation wise, they just, like I said, they just usually they'll just give a ton of incentives. So to kind of wrap this up, if you're thinking of selling or buying a home, don't use the past 3 years comps, because, like I said, you'll just be deceived. Your house won't sell. Use the comparables of probably 2019 at about 5% each year, and that's pretty much what your house should be listed at. Maybe you can go a little bit higher if you want to, but don't use the past 3 years comps, because you're just going to be listing your home. Your home's just going to be sitting on the shelf with all the other homes in the neighborhood that haven't sold, and there's just no value. People are like, oh, okay, here's another house that's overpriced. Okay, great, let's get out of here, and then your house just sits and sits and sits. So basically, hopefully I've given you some information on today's current market, how to sell your home, how to buy a home, maybe some things that you should think about before you get into real estate and sell your home or buy a home, or maybe even look at new homes, and maybe that'll get you back down to earth. Like I said, if you're buying a home, don't get emotional. Make sure it's priced the way it should. Don't use the past 3 years to compare it with the house that you're buying. If you're listing your home, like I said, don't use the past 3 years to come up with a price, because you're going to be overpriced. Just like I said, use what your home was worth about 3 years ago, and add maybe 5%. Maybe 6% of each year, and that should be a really good price. If you can't sell your price at a realistic price, don't waste your time. Don't waste a real estate agent's time, because like I said, you're just going to say, okay, my home is worth $700,000. That's what I want. You're just going to be sitting your house on top of the shelf with 100 other homes that are all overpriced, and nothing will sell. And that's what's happening in today's market. It's not that we don't have a real estate market. We just don't have a stupid real estate market like we've had 3 or 4 years ago, that would just buy anything the minute you threw it on the shelf. You could just add any price you want, and like I said, anybody would buy it. Those days are over. You got to have good condition, good price, good neighborhood, a decent home. If your home isn't decent, needs a lot of repairs, you're not just going to throw a price on it, get 40 offers on it at $30,000 more. They're going to be lowballing you on the price. And the old saying is, if it's better to just paint a few rooms, and if you need carpet, put some just basic carpet in, then don't do anything, because people will think, oh, to paint this room, it's going to cost $2,000. Oh, to recarpet this house, you're asking $30,000 to recarpet this house, and they're going to lowball you. It's probably better to paint the rooms that need to be painting. Put some decent carpet in. You'll probably get a much higher price than if you just leave everything in normal wear and tear, and there's a lot of deferred maintenance, and now you're asking a higher price. House is just going to sit and sit. Nobody's going to buy it. Don't waste your real estate time. Don't waste your time. If you're not going to upgrade the house, then discount the price. If you're not going to discount the price, then upgrade the house. If you're not going to do either one, then you're not a seller. Don't waste anybody's time. Just live in the house to what you got, and hopefully the market will change to what you want. Because like I said, if you're trying to create a market, it's never going to happen. All right, guys, I hope you got some good insight on how to sell your house in today's market. And like I said, and maybe this will bring up a lot of questions. Maybe you'll if you're selling your home, maybe you'll take the emotions out, do research from what your house was worth back about 2019, and not what they are now. If you have your house listed now and it's not selling, maybe you should get back with your real estate agent and do comps of, like I said, what the houses were selling in 2019, and get off the automated MLS and market analysis, because like I said, everybody's doing it, and that's why nobody's selling them, because everybody in your neighborhood is all priced the same, and they're all using the same software, and so on and so forth. So like I said, don't want to repeat myself, but I guess hopefully you guys got the point. All right, have a very good week, and take care of yourself, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.
We hope you enjoyed the show, Real Estate for the Common Man. Please follow us or subscribe. Tell your friends, neighbors, relatives, and coworkers about us. We're on all your major podcast apps: Amazon, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and iTunes. If you can't remember all that, just Google it, or have your friends Google real estate for the common man and it will come up. Again, we thank you very much for your time and hopefully you enjoyed the show. Hey, if you live in Colorado Springs and want to buy or sell a home, you can look us up at soldrealestatecompany.com as in I sold a home. Again, thank you very much. Have a very good week and we'll see you next Monday. Bye for now.